Shalom, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. I apologize if I sound and look a little sick. It's because I am just overcoming a bad cold and virus. I had to cave to the drugs. I took Motrin, so hope God will forgive me. I usually like to try to go the natural route, but we had to get back here. So here we are tonight to talk about a very special, important topic, which is the influence that men have over women. And I titled the thumbnail "Son of Man," which always refers to the sons of men, the human men. Take ownership of your home. And I find that in this climate of debate and internet content and all this stuff, um, we hear a lot about the male manosphere. It's called the sphere of men who talk about how women are very much whores. And they're right. They're right. Unfortunately, many women are whores, and it's a very sad thing, very terrible reality. And we hear men talk about how bad women are over and over again. But then the question comes up: well, what can you do as a man? What is your job as a man? Because it's one thing to talk about what other people's job is; it's another thing to talk about what your own job is. And I think the primary, one of the primary messages from the Eden story where you have Adam and Eve being lectured by God, immediately their response is to blame one another. Eve blames the snake, Adam blames the woman. And that doesn't result in very much good, does it? Because all you have is a blame game, finger pointing, and nothing gets done. So let's take ownership. In the past weeks, we've talked about the damages of feminism and the things that women have been doing wrong. And I think it's time to talk about what men can do to change this. And I want to present to you a biblical basis for this idea that men are actually given dominion over women. And this is something that's brought down in the Bible. Um, we can talk about it from a strictly biological perspective because it's always funny when you talk to people that are secularists and or don't believe in the Bible. They immediately start to mock the Bible and say, well, that's misogyny. The funny thing is that actually, on a literal biological, physical level, men can dominate women. And that's to say that if all men on earth decided today to to decide what they wanted to do with women, there is nothing that women can do. Um, doesn't mean men should do that. In fact, they shouldn't. And there are morals and righteous codes of conduct that men need to follow. But it's an interesting thing just for human beings to observe the nature of reality and to understand that God has given men the masculine position in existence, the ability to submit the woman who is the weaker sex physically, at the very least. We can talk about the physical reality that men have the ability to dominate women. And in fact, I've seen in feminist debates a man bring this argument up to a woman and say, "Hey, look, we're literally have the ability to dominate you. So what do you say to that?" And she said, "Well, yeah, that's why we need an army of feminist men to protect our ideas." Well, hey, look, I don't think that's working out, okay? Because ultimately men are not going to fight for an outcome that doesn't serve them. And the feminist outcome leads to the death and irrelevance of men. There's a clip been circulating on the internet of this terrible woman, Sabrina Carpenter, chanting to an entire stadium full of young women who adore her and worship her for some reason, saying, "Men are worthless, men are worthless." And they all chant back, "Yes, men are worthless." And this is a very degrading ideology that no one actually likes. Men and women don't like this because if men are useless, that makes half the planet useless. And if all women are bad, that makes the other half of the human species useless. So that's not actually a solution. That's just trauma and hatred and immaturity expressing itself. So instead of having a war between man and woman, which is like saying you have a war with your left hand, okay, it's just part of you. You can't be at war with yourself. The whole idea of male and female is that through the union of male and female, the two become one flesh and we have a single unit of humanity. You cannot be at war with yourself, so you cannot be at war with the opposite sex. Therefore, we need to come to terms with and an understanding with each other. that the way that God structured mankind is that men have the ability to dominate women. And actually, when women try to get out of this construct that God created, where the woman is the weaker species, they suffered the consequences of actually receiving more issues, because now the man would rule over them against their will. So whereas previously women had the ability to choose to be a feminine woman, they now have to go through that by force. And we read here Genesis chapter 3, verse 16. To the woman, he said, God said, I will greatly increase your pain and your sorrow in your pregnancy. You will birth children in sorrow, and your craving will be towards your man, and he will rule over you. So, first of all, women are going to have to give birth. They're going to have to fulfill their uh, literal, biological, moral duty to have children. The entire female body, from the womb to the birthing canal to the breasts, are literally structured around childbirth and nurturing that child with the milk and raising it with the female maternal hormones and responses and nature. Now she's going to have to do that in sorrow. So great. So what did you accomplish? You tried to gain the knowledge of God, become like God. Turns out you're just a woman, and now you're going to have to experience that womanhood and motherhood in sorrow. As for your femininity, your craving shall be toward your man, and he shall rule over you. So you thought you're going to get out of this. You thought you're going to have the knowledge of God. You're going to be so advanced. No. Now your craving is towards your husband, and he will rule over you. So lots of women will hear this and they'll scoff at it, right? They'll say, haha, what do you mean he's going to rule over me? He ain't going to rule over me. I know I don't need no man. I don't, right? Well, here's something interesting for you all to consider. Who is her man? Her man may not be her husband, because she may not even have a husband. Or she may have a husband, but she may be a very immoral woman who commits adultery, whether literally or figuratively. And therefore, her man is actually not necessarily even her husband. Her man would be the masculine force in existence that she submits herself to. That could be anywhere between the government, college, religious leaders, secular leaders, or all forms of negative masculine influences in existence, including the force of sin itself. That is something that a woman can submit herself to. But the bottom line is, and this is what God is making clear, is that women have to be submissive one way or another, whether they submit spiritually or physically or both, whether by their own will or against their will. That is their destiny. So, your question as a man is, am I the man in my woman's life? Or is there another man in my woman's life? And that's a question I had to ask myself. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my own story, because I'm a Jewish man and I grew up ultra Orthodox Jewish. And at a certain point in my upbringing, I realized that although I was promised a wife and likely would have, they would have delivered on that promise, um, to receive a wife within the confines of the Orthodox community, I realized, and hey, I don't mean to offend anyone, this is just my personal opinion, that if I were to marry a woman in the Orthodox Jewish community, I would not be the ultimate man in her life. In fact, the ultimate man in her life would be the rabbis. And if the rabbis wanted to tell my wife to do something that I didn't want her to do, she would have to listen to them. She wouldn't listen to me. And I thought, hey, that's really an awful prospect. So something that came to mind simply was the law of Nida. The law of Nida is the fact that a woman, when she's on her period, is impure for 7 days. During those 7 days, you can't uncover her nakedness, you can't have sex with her. The rabbis say that you have to wait almost 2 weeks out of every month. And during those 2 weeks, you cannot even sleep in the same bed. You cannot touch something. You cannot even pass something from one hand to another. Due to this fact, I realized that just on the basis of one Orthodox law alone, I would be separated from my wife, on the basis of a rabbi's ruling, not on the basis of what the Torah says. Because, hey, if God tells me to separate from my wife, that I can do, even if it's hard, but I listen to God. I'm not going to listen to men. So Hadassah is saying she submits to Jehovah. Yeah, obviously, Jehovah would be your man fundamentally. And the whole point is if you submit to a man of Jehovah, it is the equivalent of submitting to Jehovah because you're submitting to a man who is submitted to God. And the moment that that man strays from God, his life is going to fall apart and he will not be worthy of having a righteous wife. But a man who's worthy of having a righteous wife is a man who says, I'm going to take accountability for my reality, for my masculinity, for the man that I am. And I'm going to find a woman that wants me and not a woman that wants someone else, not a woman that wants other men or wants the authority of other men infiltrating our marriage. She wants me and only me. Then I know that she is submitted to me and I am the man that she chooses to rule over her. Because that's the thing. Women get to choose to be feminine. Being feminine is a choice. Women choose to be masculine, and that doesn't look very good. It looks like a destructive path. So I was learning a lot of things growing up as a ultra orthodox Jew because I only saw one area of society, and that was the ultra orthodox Jewish community. And so there was problems there because I realized that my wife would belong to the rabbi. So I said, okay, let's leave this community. Where else can I find a wife? And then the floodgates of secularism opened up, and I realized, oh no, if I find a woman from the secular world, then guess who'll be her man? College, degree, career, money. I don't know, Satan. Because the secular world, I mean, if I thought the Orthodox world was bad, the secular world, that's just a nightmare. So I'm moving along year after year through my early 20s. And mind you, I wanted to be married years ago, but time takes its toll and you got to move through life. You don't always get what you want when you want it. And and then um, I decided to start to expand my circle and try new things. And one of the things I wanted to try was auditioning for America's Got Talent because America's Got Talent has people come and display their talents and sing. So I'm a singer, and I wanted to audition for America's Got Talent. And I show up there, and because you're basically just a sheep to them, they make you wait for hours at a time outside of the building, and they have you walk from side to side, and they're filming you the whole time because this is just a promotion for them, and you do a whole mock entry, and you're basically just advertisement for them. So as we're standing there for hours outside, people are kind of huddled in their own groups, and I was alone. And there was this girl that I kept seeing uh, uh, standing next to her. I was standing behind her, and kind of in this life in this world where men find themselves, I was like, yeah, it's just another girl. I'll never get to talk to her. I'll never get to know what she's like. And then what do you know? I'm walking up the stairs, and she's walking down the stairs, and we kind of just lock eyes, and we smile at each other, and I say hello. And that's a tactic that I was learning as a man, by the way. So to all the men out there, you need to learn how to approach women. You need to learn how to introduce yourself and say hello and create that chemistry. Okay? Like we live in a world where men are watching pornography. Okay? That is vile. We live in a world where men are dealing with AI girlfriends. What even is that? That's the worst dystopian uh, possibility imaginable. So thank God I was developing that skill over the years because I realized I'm not going to rely on some rabbi to make my matchmaking. I'm not going to rely on some dating app, really. I mean, some people meet each other in dating apps, but it's not the best alternative. I said, I want to meet a girl in the real world. I want to fall in love and I want to actually have a real connection. And so I approached this girl and I said, how are you? And we got to talking, and immediately we felt extremely comfortable with each other. And we were talking. We talked for hours. We went on a date right after that. We started dating next few days, one after the next. And before you know it, we're seeing each other all the time, and things are getting very serious. Now, the thing is that there are some hurdles along the way because I'm a man who has these principles that I've developed, Torah principles, God based living, the desire for my wife to be a stay at home mother. And when you say the word stay-at-home wife and mother to a woman these days, they pretty much go white as a sheet, and they say, "You would never ask a woman to become a caged animal in the kitchen, chained to the sink doing dishes and using her body to have children. What are you, a rabbit? You need to reproduce like that." Anyhow, you get a lot of indoctrinated responses from women. Um, and my wife herself was on a path to be a grand feminist uh, woman of achievement. She was in college, wanting to get a degree, wanting to become a doctor, wanting to do all these things. And I told her, I said, if this is going to work, I just need two things from you. I need you to have one God and one man, and your career needs to be being a wife and a mother. So we have to follow the same God, Jehovah. We have to follow his Torah. We have to follow those commandments. I have to be your husband, and I need you fully dedicated to our home. And that was a difficult thing. You don't hear that every day. And it even caused us to break up at one point because we just thought we wouldn't be compatible. But we kept being pulled back to each other, and we couldn't actually deny what we had going on. And so we resumed seeing each other after a few weeks. And we have these faith meetings every week at my friend's boxing gym on Sunday. And so we went to the faith meeting and we were talking about God and faith and the family. And afterwards, she told me, she said, you know, I think I would consider being a wife and a mother, and think that would actually be really nice. And I was pretty shocked to hear that, because those are the magic words as far as I'm concerned. And suffice it to say, it took some time, but we got there. And we got to the point where I was a single man. I was definitely not being the best man that I could be. I was smoking weed. I was hanging out late at night. I was doing all these things. I was, you know, broken neck syndrome man, like just looking at girls, wanting to be everywhere all at once. And I wasn't honest with my own shortcomings. And I was being, I was not owning up to the man that I needed to be. And in the case of my wife, she was not owning up to the woman she needed to be, because um, she was following the ways of the world, the ways of the feminism. Someone says no law against weed. Yeah, that's true. But if you smoke weed every day, your ambition will go down, and you'll be a little too high to get by. So, yeah, definitely, I was. It was not the way of life that I needed to be doing in order to get ahead, in order to build my business, in order to become a father. And so we both helped each other get better, and we both served as a mirror for one another. And before you know it, we actually were ready to get married and have a child. And God willing, we'll be having a child very soon. So this is just our own personal story, but I wanted to present it to you because my wife told me that if you did not stand up for your values, and if you did not stand up for the Torah and for femininity, then I wouldn't have even thought about it. She's like, I've never even heard a man say these things, let alone stand by them, stand his ground. And I realized that that's all it takes, really. All it takes is strong men who stand by their principles, who stand by their values, and who actually make it a point to tell women, I'm here to live a life of righteousness. I may not be perfect, I may have my shortcomings, but I'm going to be the best man that I can be, and I need you to be the best woman that you can be. And there are clear roles that are outlined in existence. Again, even just from a biological level, women getting pregnant, breastfeeding, child after child. These are full time responsibilities. Maintaining a home. Men are needed to teach their children. If you don't send your kids off to schools, then you got to raise and educate your own children. These are full time jobs. People go work a 9 to 5 so they can pay for private school for their kids when they could just be teaching their kids themselves. This is absurd. People live backwards lives. So we're trying to live forward moving lives. We're trying to take back our own freedom, to take back our own homes. Men need to take back their own masculinity. Women need to take back their own femininity. But men, and that's what I want to point out, men have this ability to stand firm. And if you think about Adam in the garden, what did Adam not do? He didn't stand firm. He caved in immediately. And we don't know what the outcome would have looked like if Adam stayed strong as the man in that scenario, because we only know what it looks like when they both fall. But the thing is, Adam doesn't have to fall just because Eve falls. Eve doesn't have to fall just because Adam falls. The reality is that men can stand as a barrier between the destruction that comes through the feminine. So even if the feminine has a destructive tendency, like the one illustrated in Genesis, if the man stood as a barrier to that destruction, who knows what the outcome would have been? Who knows? We don't know, because that's not the story. The story is that the man did not do his job. So I'm calling men to do their job. You may be aware that 90% of OnlyFans subscribers, OnlyFans, which is a sick, twisted application where people do online prostitution for a price, 90% of the subscribers on OnlyFans are married men. Well, what does that tell you about how hard men are trying to make their marriages work? When you think about all the men that walk out on their families, when you think about all the abortions that happen, well, who are the fathers? Where are the men? Where are the men playing video games all day, denying their responsibilities, not living up to their morals and their values that they need to be doing? And again, what is the validation structure? Okay. Women, in a lot of ways, are simple creatures. They appreciate validation, they appreciate attention. Is that good? Is that sophisticated? Maybe not, but it's just a fact. And what does this culture reward? What does this culture satisfy? What urge does it satisfy in women? The more that you flaunt your naked body and the more that you show off your depraved, godless lifestyle, the more will reward you. Society will reward the world's greatest whore will be uh, glorified as a queen. Well, once upon a time, a queen was a righteous woman, a modest woman who was a loyal wife to her husband, the king. Now, a queen is a woman with a lot of plastic surgery and a lot of money for basically just showing her nudity to the world and maybe singing some bad songs with very crass lyrics and descriptive sexual terminology, which somehow makes you cool and hip. Well, it doesn't. It's really just gross and disgusting and actually cheapens you as a woman and removes you from a possibility of ever being with a real righteous man. So if men are the ones who are rewarding this, if women are getting all these likes on their page, who's liking all these Instagram whores pictures? Who's supporting all this stuff? Who's paying for all these prostitutes and porn actresses to make all their millions? All the people that are watching. And who are the people that are watching? Majority men, obviously. The porn triggers the man brain. So this is men supporting the degradation of women instead of standing as a barrier between that and the downfall of humanity. And what does Adam do once he realizes what's really going on? So there's this beautiful verse here at the end of Genesis chapter 3. Adam says, Genesis 3:20, Adam called the name of his wife Eve, Chava, for she had become the mother of all living. So Adam realized, wait, okay. Woman, this is confusing. She's out here talking to the snake. She's getting the knowledge, God. No, she's a mother. She's literally a mother. And then Eve, when she becomes a mother, she realizes her great power. Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. And Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore a son named Cain. And she said, I have acquired a man with Yahweh. I have acquired a man with Yahweh. The ultimate power. You're like, oh, women are like, oh, I need my power. I need my. What is your power? You can literally co-create a human being with God and acquire a man with Yahweh. That's the ultimate power. That's the ultimate beauty. It's the ultimate realization of our humanity to continue in the pathway of God. This is unbelievable. This is exactly what life could and should look like if we actually owned up to our obligations. And what does the man's obligation look like? Well, same thing, the same way that the woman's life now became more burdensome and sorrowful. Genesis 3:17, to Adam, God said, "Because you listened to the voice of your wife, and you ate from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from. Cursed is the ground on your account. In sorrow you shall eat of it all the days of your life. And thorns and thistles will grow for you, and you will eat the grass of the field. By the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread until you return to the ground, because from it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return." Cold, stone cold facts. You listen to your wife instead of listening to God. That's insane. God tells us exactly what to do, and then we go listen to a woman. What is this woman worship? Simultaneously worshiping women and then trash talking women on the back end? That's not going to work for men, but that's what men are doing. It's very lame. But ultimately, God is saying, now you gotta work in sorrow by the sweat of your brow. So things are going to be difficult. All right. Women, things are going to be difficult for you. It's going to be difficult for you to be a mother. That's why women don't want to be mothers. That's why they kill their babies. That's why they run away from marriage, and they use birth control, and they have a lifetime subscription to Planned Parenthood, and they say, "I'll never get married. I don't need no man. I'll have one little ego child out of wedlock and raise it, and maybe let the father see it if I want to." Right? This madness, no, that's not the way of life. The way of life is to engage with the truth of existence, even if it's hard. So, men, yeah, it's hard to earn a living, especially this economy nowadays. My God, everyone knows just how bad it is. Everyone knows just how difficult it is to make it out here. Well, God promised you that it would be sorrowful by the sweat of your brow. Doesn't matter. You got to do it anyway. This is the message. The message is, even even if life gets tough as a result of your own bad decisions, by the way, you still have to do the right thing. And that is the test of life over and over again. God is saying, I'm going to push you to the end of your wits in order to see if you're going to do the right thing. And Stephen's saying, God did give us a quarrelsome helper. Yeah, exactly. So, the Ezer Kenegdo, the helpmate opposite you, also means the helpmate against you. Right. So there is a tension and a conflict, opposite and against, but ultimately we're corresponding to one another, and we have to use that flame and that tension to do good, not to do bad, to be constructive and not destructive, to do the right thing even when the going gets tough, even when it's in sorrow, even when it feels forced and like we have no choice, like women have no choice but to be submissive, feminine wives and be mothers. And then they're like, oh, it feels bad and it's oppressive. And men are like, oh, it's so hard to take all this responsibility and provide for all these people. They're ungrateful, blah, blah, blah. No, don't fall into the bitterness, the cynicism and the resentment of disbelieving in what life is actually supposed to look like, because that's what life is supposed to look like. That's exactly what it's supposed to look like. And the more that we get behind it, and the more that we live it, and we feel it, and we actually have faith that the good will win and that the positive will ultimately outweigh the negative, then we continue in the right direction no matter what challenges and struggles come our way. And that's exactly what we need to be doing collectively as a species. And it's very sad that there aren't very good role models. So I saw this clip of Gavin Newsom's wife. So Gavin Newsom is the governor of Los Angeles. He's a flaming liberal leftist guy, and his wife is no different. They're the partners in crime couple pushing for liberal leftist agendas to fill this nation so that we can stop differentiating between men and women, and we pretend like marriage can be between two men and two women, even though marriage is obviously between a man and a woman. All of these despicable ideas that these people want to try to normalize, and I don't know who hired them to do this. it's got to be Satan himself. But it's really disgusting that's even a, a situation. But Gavin Newsom's wife was at a forum for concerned liberal mothers or transgenders or whatever, and she's saying, it's really concerning to see our young sons liking Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate is a really dangerous guy and he's really terrible. So therefore, the response is that we should use government propaganda to teach men to become feminists, to teach men. She says, I give dolls to my sons and I give trucks to my daughters. And I teach boys that they can be like girls and girls can be like boys. And we're all just on a big spectrum. And who is this for? Why? Like, this is not good. This is just destructive by definition, breaking down clearly defined things. Nothing's more clearly defined than male and female. So you want to break that down, then you want to break down everything. You want to destroy everything. But why? Why do men respond to Andrew Tate? Who is Andrew Tate? Andrew Tate is the most transparently non-righteous man. He himself made money off of being a pimp and pimping out internet cam girls on porn. So that's your masculine hero. The guy is supposed to stand for family. He doesn't have a family. He has a bunch of random baby mamas who he goes to visit once in a while, allegedly, and he basically goes around flaunting his wealth and materialism and just an arrogant fool who is actually immoral and made his money off of the immorality that he then accuses other people of doing, and made a career off of bemoaning the downfall of Western civilization and the horror crisis of all the whores, when he's the one who's sleeping with the whores and actually creating the whores and promoting them, so, and making money off of it. So obviously Andrew Tate is not a good example of what a man should look like. That being said, there is a reason why young boys would respond to that caricature of a villainous masculine man, because the alternative is Mr. Gay Newsom and his witch wife and their evil ideologies and their despicable claims, trying to lie to children that there's no difference between men and women, trying to distort reality. Children have a knack for hearing the truth, and they know when you're lying. They know that their parents are a bunch of frauds. So if some guy on the internet is being bombastic and puffing his chest out and smoking a cigar and saying, women got to serve us because we're men, yeah, I'm sure that sounds appealing to a young boy who hasn't seen anything remotely masculine in his life, who hasn't seen anything remotely promoting his manhood as being something to be proud of, or something that contains power. But here's the thing. The power of masculinity is inherent the same way the power of femininity is inherent. So the same way Eve says, I have acquired a man with Yahweh. She's acquires a man. She has the utmost influence in the home. There's a great quote: the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. So take that in. If you are rocking the cradle, if you are making those babies, you rule the world, because the world is ruled by people and you make the people. It's pretty high level you got going on there, doing things that men could absolutely never do. So of course there's so much power in being both masculine as a man and being feminine as a woman. And there are choices. There are choices that men have to make to become the man that they need to become righteous. Because what makes a man be righteous is not just the lust and the pursuit of power. That's not what makes a man righteous, because that just turns into destructive, or what they call toxic masculinity. Men who understand that they have an obligation and a moral duty from God to enforce his law and his justice, the law that exists for both men and women alike. This is what we have to be doing. Ultimately, we all have to be submitted to God. We all have to be following God. And that's the beauty of a life where we put God at the center. And that's awesome. That's exactly where God wants us to be headed. He wants us to be headed towards his ways. And just to show you again that the Torah promotes fatherhood and patriarchy as being the head of the household. Although in Judaism, you have this idea that Judaism goes through the mother, this is actually not seen at all in the entire Old Testament, entire Tanakh, not in the Torah. Not in the Torah. Where does the Torah say that Judaism goes by the mother? Nowhere. In fact, when we talk about lineage and tracing family households, Numbers chapter 1, verse 2, by their fathers' houses, they are judged to their families, by their fathers' houses. So they go to the fathers. We still live in a world like that where we go by the fathers. Where did you get your last name from? From your father, right? And idiot feminists are like, "Oh, I'm going to keep my last name." Well, guess what? That's not your last name, it's your father's last name. So you're upholding the patriarchy, you're just upholding your father's patriarchy instead of your husband's patriarchy. So that's really bad because you're supposed to be leaving your father's house to go to your husband's house. So everything about feminism is toxic. But the alternative to that, which is not really a term, but let's just coin it, masculinism. If you take any one thing and turn it into an ism, it's going to deteriorate and become extreme. All extremes deteriorate because they're not an accurate representation of reality. I take femininity and then put it on a pedestal and say everything that women do, think, or say is right. Well, then you turn into a disgusting civilization where women are worshipped. But the same would happen with men. If you say everything men say and do is right and men should be right no matter what, then again, you have society deteriorate. So again, this is not about man versus woman. It's about God above all. And a man's obligation is to familiarize himself with his responsibilities to God and actually be the one who enforces these laws. Because if God has given man dominion over woman, then what man needs to do with that dominion is not abuse his power. Because again, these debates are so sad. If you see with a feminist, this feminist woman said, you know, the most dangerous place for a woman is in the home. And I thought that's just the saddest thing you can ever say, because what you're saying is that the home, which is supposed to be the safest and most beautiful place for everyone, is the most dangerous. Now, I don't believe that at all, but let's just say this is borne out by statistics, because the people you're with are the people that are in your home. So if you're going to get abused, you're probably going to get abused by someone in your home. Why? Why are things like this happening? Why are men being such pieces of shit? Why are men using their little extra physical strength that God gave them to abuse women and children when they're supposed to be helping women and children? If you're given strength, you can use that strength to beat down or to lift up, right? If you're strong, you can lift up that child, you can lift up that woman. That's what you should be doing as a man, not beating them down, not being destructive. What an awful eventuality where we have men who were given strength by God, strength of character, strength of sexual seduction, whatever it is that men have. By the way, the Torah acknowledges the strength of men's sexual seduction in the context of virginity, because the Torah protects virginity, and virginity, only women have virginity. Men don't have a virginity. Women have a virginity, which is the hymen, which of course people are pretending there's no hymen. There's obviously a hymen. That is a fact. People are mentally ill and they want to pretend like virginity doesn't exist. Virginity exists and it needs to be protected. In the Torah, the price of taking a woman's virginity is that you have to marry her. Okay? So you have men walking around the world seducing virgins, taking their virginity, deflowering them, taking that precious thing that they have and then walking away as if they did nothing. You understand? That's not nothing. That obligates you to marry this woman. How many men would just take the virginity of a random girl they didn't even like that much if they had to marry her? And vice versa. How many girls would actually give up their virginity to a man that they didn't want to marry because, oh, I got to get rid of my virginity so I can have more sex? No, you're supposed to keep your virginity so you don't have more sex. The reality is that virginity is something that needs to be protected. Purity is something that needs to be protected. All of these things require so much care and attention, and the Torah is calling us to that enforcement. Men, don't just take this lightly. Don't just think you can grab a woman, sleep with her for a night, take her virginity, and throw her away. That virginity is precious. It's sacred. Virginity equals marriage in the Torah. Remember that. That eliminates promiscuity, because you can never just have sex with a girl and cast her to the side. If young men and women are having sex, that sex equals marriage. That is ultimate protection for women. That is ultimate protection for society, that we don't fall into the decay that we're now in, where virginity has completely lost its value, where sex has completely lost its significance, where men walk around sleeping with all these women and then call them whores, or men sit there on the internet in their dark rooms masturbating to pornography and then cry a river about it. I get it. It's very difficult. The temptation is real. The loneliness is deep and profound. And you have to pray to God, and you have to do everything you can to start approaching women and interacting with them and having these tough conversations, because damn, these are tough conversations. Every single woman's indoctrinated the same way every single man is indoctrinated. So we have to start having these tough conversations and actually setting expectations. What do we really want out of life? What do we really value? And again, this is not an easy task. No one claimed that this was going to be easy, but it's necessary and it's good and it's righteous, and it's going to be the thing that actually leads us to salvation, because everything else leads to destruction. There was a time when 90% of women, probably less than 50, 100 years ago, 90% of women were virgins on their wedding day. Now, 90% of women are not virgins on their wedding day. There was a time when the percentage of the population that was LGBTQ plus was 0.0001%. Now it's 20% and growing, as they like to boast. Wonder if that's engineered at all. Still growing. We'll get more of you. What is that? What is going on? What is actually going on when we look at the degradation of society, the cheapening of all this stuff? People can't see clearly, and the economy is failing. Why is the economy failing? Well, because people are greedy, because they're prioritizing money and personal gain over the sustaining of family life. And this is abundantly clear in historical records that, again, 100 years ago, a janitor could support his family off of his paycheck. Single income household can support a family of 6 and buy a house. A truck driver could support a family of 8 and have a house. And now, what do we have now? People can't afford anything. They're struggling to afford groceries. You need a dual income household. And again, I understand if people cannot be a stay-at-home wife for financial reasons, fine. But I know people who have no financial worries in their life, and they still got to go out there. They still got to go show the world, I'm still up. I'm not going to back down. I'm not a coward. What makes you a coward to stay at home and take care of yourself and your life and your children and your husband? That's the most brave and courageous and beautiful and wholesome thing you could be doing. And men, these idiot men, they tell their wife, "Oh, honey, whatever you want. Like, I have a ton of money and I don't need you to work, but if you want to, you can." Gives his little effeminate smile. No, you idiot. Say no. Say no. Men need to lay down the law. This is the problem is men do not lay down the law. Men do not stand up for the truth. They do not stand up for what they actually need from a woman. Men need women to be present for them as wives and mothers. Same way women need their husbands to be present for them as husbands and fathers. And men are like, no, I couldn't possibly get in the way of your dreams. Dreams, by the way, meaning making money and working in an office. Somehow that's the greatest dream you can come up with. So here's the thing. Don't make it optional. Don't make it, oh, like whatever you want, honey. Be real with it. What do you need as a man? What do you want? Do you want 1.5 children over 20 years of being single and then finally lock something down at 35 or whatever it is? No. If you're a young man, you should always want to get married as soon as possible. And it doesn't matter the age. Like, you really just always have to be looking. Life is better when we're together. Man and woman were made to be one. This is good. And again, if you're single for a reason. Everything happens on God's timing. This is not something to say if you're a single person, you're not alive. Of course, you're alive and well, and you should be striving to better yourself. But always have your heart open for love, because love is the substance of life. Love is actually what it takes for us to live in harmony with life and creation and with God. And Hadassah is saying many affairs happen when the woman goes into the workforce. Yeah, Of course. Actually true. Um, this is how affairs happen because guess what happens? When you leave the house and you spend the day with your coworkers all day, and you're in close quarters and you're in tight spaces and you're talking about your life and you're talking about the fight you just had with your husband, and he's your coworkers being so understanding and giving you all the validation you want. Oh no, what's going to happen? I wonder what's going to happen when you put a man and a woman and lock them in a room together all day. Probably nothing. It's probably just platonic, right? Please be realistic, be truthful. Stephen saying, is working barred, or are you just saying if we don't want them to work they shouldn't? What about after the kids leave? um, Again, this is my opinion. It's not a law in the Torah that says women shall not work outside of the home. I just believe that in general, I want you all to picture the ideal life for a second. Okay. And sometimes people struggle with the ideal because it's obviously hard to achieve and we don't know if we ever will. But here's the ideal life: both men and women work from the home for the home. And I'll give you a little picture. Okay. There's a plot of land, there's a house. In the house lives a father and a mother and many children. They wake up in the morning. Father does not have to go to the office. Mother does not have to go to the office. Children don't have to go to school. In fact, they get up in the morning, they wash, they say they wash their hands, they wash their body, whatever. They say grace, they pray to God, they thank God, they have breakfast together. Then they get up and they start to work because the mother's got to take care of the kitchen and she's got to take care of the food, and the father's got to go take care of the field and he's got to go pick the apples and plow the field and harvest the wheat and milk the cow and collect the eggs and build a shed. And I mean, there's just so much that needs to be done all the time. There's so much maintenance. If every family, God willing, and this is like a prayer, most of all, God willing, every family had their own plot of land that they didn't have to uh, pay freaking property tax on to some evil government that says you will never own anything. Wait till we start taxing you for the oxygen and the air that you breathe. Um, yeah, you don't have to pay property tax and tax you own because it's yours. You have your own property. It's fully yours. It belongs to you. And you get to work your own land, and you have your own family, and you have your own house, and you have your own animals, and you have your own crops. Where does anyone need to go? Like, why do people always need to be leaving the home? Why do people always need to be running away to these artificial work environments, to these cramped cubicles, sitting on screens all day, pretending like this is the substance of life? It's really not. I think the the beauty, uh, the beauty of actually being in a environment of nature, where families are together all the time, where husbands and wives are together, where children are together with their parents, where people are living off the land. That's actually, when I read the Torah, big picture, that's what I see is being presented to us. It's an agricultural society where we literally sit there and rely on God to send us the rain. And every seventh year, we just rest completely from all of our work, and we just don't even work for a year. We just kind of maintain our lives. We don't even touch the field. We let whatever grow. Not everything's for the taking. This is crazy. And it's all reliance on God. If you don't rely on God, none of this is going to work. If God doesn't give us these produce and these products, it won't happen. But what does that show you? It shows you that there is a world in which we can actually live in harmony as family, where there's no barrenness, where there's no miscarriage, where there's no illness, where there's no sickness. These are the promises of the Torah. What does that mean to you? Is it just fairy tales? Is it nonsense? Is it metaphors? I believe that it's literal because I can envision a world like that. I can feel a reality like that, and I can see it where it's true because it's just real. And it's the way. It's beauty. It's the beauty of life itself. Because the earth that God says, oh, the earth is cursed on account of you, because when we do bad, the earth itself is degraded. The ground is degraded. Okay, so there's a curse on the very earth that we occupy due to our own disobedience of God. There is sorrow that we have to go through in our own roles as men and women due to our disobedience of God and our weakness in the face of temptation. So we have to build up. We're building up. Good. That's what we're here to do. We're here to succeed. We're here to achieve the plan that God has in store for us. And that's beauty realized. It's actually wonderful. Um, Stephen saying struggling together against life is the best part of marriage. I see that. Yeah. Again, there's so many tests and struggles in life, and that actually gives marriage its flavor and it gives life its flavor. God actually um, sometimes gives us challenges to keep us busy. Maybe we would get too bored if everything was so easy. So you never know why these things come. And yes, going through struggle brings people closer together. You go through the good and the bad, the highs and the lows, and there's beauty in all of it. And if we can start to see the beauty in the world, the beauty in life, in the way that God has formed everything, I think that that's a really awesome prospect for the future. And again, it couldn't be stressed more. Men don't have these skills anymore. So, like my father-in-law is a Armenian man, and he's got all of these real serious skills that I've never met a man who has these skills in the modern day. He can he can build a house, he can build a chair, um, he can build a furnace, power it by oil. He knows how to take apart a car and put it back together. He knows how to make cheese and yogurt and pickle things and like cure meats and dry out all these things. I mean, who the hell knows how to do that? That's awesome, right? That's the stuff that people need to know, because then, hey, maybe we wouldn't be so reliant on the government or on the corporations to deliver everything to our door if we actually knew how to produce things. If we actually had, and then you'd find purpose. Like imagine how much purpose there is in sitting on the chair you just made, or eating the food that you just picked, or drinking the milk that you just got out of your own cow. Like, why do we even need all the reliances that we have on the modern day? Um, and again, some people are still out there. Someone says, I'm in Louisiana. You can grow anything here. Awesome. Yeah. Like the earth is still the earth. I live in a city area, but I have a nice residential place where I live. And once in a while, when I can get out of the house, take a walk and just breathing in the air, we're always in nature. We're always in this beautiful oasis. Like it's unchanging. You can go on the internet and your head's spinning from all the chaos. You can think about all the family drama and all the politics and all this crap, and then you go outside and just the air is as silent as anything, and it's beautiful and it's crisp, and the stars are twinkling and the moon is glowing, the sun is shining, the clouds, the blue, the green, this is the world. Someone says, you just inspired me to start my own garden tomorrow. Amen. God put us in the garden. Coincidence? I don't think so. God started humanity off in a garden. A garden, what is a garden? It's a perfectly preserved place. It's preserved. There's the chaos of the unknown, and then there's the garden. The garden is planted. It's deliberate. There's this tree, there's that tree, and God just says, tend to this garden that I gave you, and you will be safe, and you'll be good. Um, and so, is gardening work? Well, yeah, it's the work that you do. It's the work that you do throughout the week to maintain the garden. And then on Shabbat, you just rest and you don't have to do anything. You just enjoy the fruits of God's labor and the fruits of your labor, um, tending to and caring for God's creation. And that's the beauty here, that the world is already made. We are already made. All that we have to do is open our eyes to the beauty of the life that God has set in place and set in motion. And that's wonderful. Just a second. Stephen saying gardening was before we got thrown out to toil in the soil. I guess, but I guess gardening is the leisure form of toil. But yeah, that's difficult to differentiate between the leisure and the toil when you are when you feel blessed by God. And my daughter has a green thumb. From seedlings grew bell peppers, cucumbers, jalapenos, blueberries, mulberry bush. It's really awesome. We give thanks to Yah all the time. Exactly. When you get to see things sprouting from their beginnings, from their very beginnings, it's just it's remarkable. It's awe-inspiring. You start to see that life itself is a miracle, and you stop waiting for something else to happen outside or external to life, because life itself is perfect, and God Himself has made everything in such a miraculous fashion. The way everything works is beyond beautiful, and it all speaks to us on every level. It speaks to us on a soul level, and it speaks to us right down to our DNA, because we, as God tells Adam, He's like, I'm going to remind you, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. So if um, if that's what if that's what man needs to remember, you are dust. All right, and that's what we are. We are of this earth, and God says you will return to this earth. And so take this time on earth to focus on what it means to be an earthly human being, what it means to live in this place, not to try to plan your escape, your getaway trip to heaven, which is what everyone seems to be obsessed with. Hey, the rabbis say this world is a hallway to the next world. So yeah, enjoy your 120 years in the hallway. Sounds like one way to disassociate from life. I never liked that statement. This is not a hallway at all. This is a world unto itself. This is an entire world, and it's a wonderful world, and it's a wonderful life. And God is abundantly kind, and He infuses so much value into small, what we would think are small, insignificant characters like us. Suddenly, we get to be in the image that God created. We're in the image of God, and we get to actually be there, experiencing this life with Him, and that's a wonderful thing to be able to do. And someone's saying, God cursed the ground for man's sake. Work is a blessing. Yeah, I mean, God did it for man's sake because man needed to learn his lesson. There was work before the ground was cursed. Okay, so it says God put man in the garden to work it and guard it. So the man was supposed to work the garden, but then God said, all right, now things are going to get even more difficult for you. So there was still plenty of work to be done in the garden. Personally, I'm one of the people that would have liked to stay in the garden. Some people seem to like that we left the garden. I think it would have been good that we stayed. Regardless, though, uh, whatever happened, happened. So they say don't cry over spilled milk. So there's been a lot of spilled milk throughout history. Let's put it that way. And as we know, as milk starts to age, it doesn't get better. It doesn't age like wine. Stephen says the Torah would be much shorter if we just stayed in the garden. This is true. This is true. So yeah, there's a story here, and there's an arc, right? We start off from the beginning in this garden of bliss and innocence, and then we break out of there, and then there's all these different eras of history, and we're still in a time of exile, and there's lots of difficulties going on around the world, but we're making our way back. That's the whole idea here. It's a road to a road of return, a road of recovery, to come back to God, to come back to His ways, come back to our heart, to come back to our soul, to have our heart circumcised, to remove the blockages, to become close to Him. And dare I say that men have a unique role in this, because men are given the law to enforce. Who goes out to war? Who goes out to the battle? Who are the warriors? Men. Every man 20 years and above. That's what the Torah says, right? Who do the households go by? Men. This is a task that's uniquely handed to men to provide and protect for their family. By the sweat of their brow, they got to bring that bread for everyone to survive, because who's bringing the bread to that woman when she's in her 9th month of pregnancy, and or when she's got breast milk spilling out and she's got to take care of 10 kids? Men. Who's going to build that house? Who's going to carry those heavy bricks and those heavy logs? Men, right? Men have to do all this, and that's that's a it's a responsibility, and it's an honor, and men need to stop tending towards weakness, because that's really the downfall. And the man blaming the woman was just about his lowest moment, because even worse than failing and listening to his wife instead of listening to God was when he decided to blame her instead of taking accountability. So again, what would have happened if Adam didn't eat the fruit, even though Eve gave it to him? What would have happened if Adam actually took responsibility when God asked him what he did wrong instead of just blaming his wife? So let's stand up. Let's take responsibility. Let's be the men that God wants us to be, to enforce his law, to be the barrier so that chaos does not erupt. And God willing, when women see that their men have improved to such a degree, then they'll actually realize, hey, I want to submit myself to that man. I want to be that man's wife. I want to be there to clean his clothes and make his food and make his babies because that's an honor and that's beautiful. And that's something that I want to do because that's actually um, what God wants from us. Okay. And when a woman has that awoken in her, it doesn't stop because she suddenly realizes, hey, this is what I was made for. This is what I was born for. And men can see that too, and there's purpose in that to follow God's plan, which is right in line with our very nature and biology as God has created it. And someone says, I was talking to my neighbors today to homeschool their 2-year-old son. I told them it's our job to protect our children, sharing Torah with them. Amen. Amen. It's our job to teach our children. Nowhere in the Torah does it say, send your children to be educated by strangers in a corrupted institution that teaches nonsense. No, no, you teach your children. You teach your children. How many times is that said in the Torah? All the time. That's the whole message here. It's about empowering men to be men, women to be women, to come together, to be fathers, to be mothers, to educate their children, to build communities united in kindness and truth and in justice, where not injustice, in justice, in goodness, and holiness. That's that's what we're looking for, and it starts with strong men. I believe that. And so I pray that men strengthen themselves and they start to reward women for doing good. When your wife makes you a good meal, or even maybe if it's not that good, praise her, thank her, love her, show her that you appreciate when she does good things. Don't validate her when she does bad things, validate her when she does good things. Don't just say, "Hey, honey, you can go work, even though um, I can support you." No, if you can support her, have her stay home. You need her at home. The fact that she would even have to go out is sad. That's a negative aspect of the modern economy that's been destroyed by feminism. So don't allow that to happen. Actually, enforce this lifestyle where we are home-based human beings and we only leave the home by necessity, but not by choice. Stephen says, didn't Adam blame God too? It was the woman who gave it to me. Poor simple Adam. Exactly. He blamed God too. You gave me this woman. Exactly. Poor little guy. What did he do? Exactly. There's no accountability there. So God is calling us to maturity. And we had to go through this journey for thousands of years in order to mature. So we're a couple thousand years old at this point. It's probably time to mature. When we make a vow in marriage before Yah to bless our marriage, to bless our husband, we don't turn his blessing into an insult. Respect your husband. Yes, women need to respect their husbands. There's a lot of disrespect going on. Men need to appreciate their wives. And again, to reinforce good behavior. When we reinforce good behavior, we face life's challenges together. We help better each other. Women can help bring out the masculinity in men. Men can help bring out the femininity in women. And we can look at a world where we are healed, where we are restored, where we become better and more wholesome people to create a life that God has intended, which is a good life and a good world and a good creation. Amen. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Thank you all for being here.